The return and rise of city tourism. We're here to see how cities around the world are coming back in a sustainable, creative, and smart way. My name is Rashi Sen. I'm the editor of TTN Middle East, and we have 5 great panelists. You see 4 now, but there are 5 great panelists. Okay. Sorry. Ladies first, we have Emily Jenkins, General Manager, Dinata Travel Leisure, Devika Nijavan, Global Head of International Market, Qatar National Tourism Council, Behruz Asgarov, Deputy CEO, Azerbaijan Tourism Board, who's here to speak about Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, Tom Keeley, President and CEO, West Hollywood Travel and Tourism Board. West Hollywood is a prime piece of real estate, and it is a city which is based right in the heart of Los Angeles. We have Ismail Abu Zaid, research analyst, Euromonitor International, who's supposed to zoom in. The 5th panelist, thank you. Ismail Abu Zaid, research analyst, Euromonitor International, who's joining us remotely from the UK, where it is bright and early. Good morning, Ismail. May I please request the audience for a big round of applause for our panelists here today, and for yourself for being here on the last session. Thank you so much.
My name is Ismail Abuzaid. I'm a research analyst for representing Euromonitor International. And I just wanted to talk about the return and rise of city tourism. So just a quick overview, Euromonitor is the world's leading provider of global business intelligence, market analysis, and consumer insights. We combine global expertise with local insights from analysts from all around the world who are based in each country to help our clients anticipate industry, economic, and consumer trends to lead disruptive change. We have data for 210 countries, and we do direct research for 100 countries. So I just wanted to kick off really this presentation by showing you Euromonitor's city index. So basically the city index compares 54 different metrics across 6 key pillars, and it creates an overall city attractiveness score. And basically this report highlights the 100 top cities. So some of the metrics that we look at include economic and business performance, they look at tourism performance, and they look at tourism infrastructure. So just a couple of key trends to kick everything off is we're seeing a lot of emerging market cities that were rising last year that really benefited from domestic tourism that came as a result of COVID. We're seeing them kind of disappear now and make space for more traditional leading cities that you can imagine. We have European cities that are really leading the way with 39 out of the top 100 cities. And what we've really learned that was a key takeaway from this year's report was that travel and tourism really is key for city development. And we're seeing sustainability that is emerging as a trend that provides a lot of opportunities for growth. Just to focus a bit more on the MEA before we go into the trends, Dubai is actually ranked 2nd in our travel index. It was 1st last year, but it has now made 2nd on our list. And some of the key points that we're seeing across the Middle East that Gulf cities are really making a big impact in terms of scoring for health and safety. A lot of the cities had an impressive vaccination campaign and strict safety and hygiene measures. So for example, the Gulf cities are ranked 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th for health and safety when we compare it to other cities worldwide, which is impressive. And finally, we're seeing a big return of business travel. I know it's ironic because I'm the only one who didn't make the trip, but Dubai and Doha are definitely on our list for the top 12 when it comes to business travel. And just a global trend that we're seeing is that travel is starting to recover. We're estimating it to double the number of travelers we're estimating to double in 2022 versus 2021, which is massive. It opens up a lot of doors. It really gives another life to the industry, and it's very exciting to see. And we're expecting this trend to continue all the way to 2027, and we're expecting compounded annual growth rate of around 13.6% over the next 5 years, which again is a huge opportunity for the market to grow and regain its importance and its title. And some of the trends that we're seeing emerging are business travel, obviously, as it's coming back, but we're seeing different types of business travel. We're seeing travel where people attach a couple of free days at the end of their business trips to kind of integrate the whole the business leisure travel. We're seeing a lot of remote conferences like we're doing right now, and we're seeing a lot of sustainable travel, which is basically people who try to minimize their carbon footprint when they travel. We're seeing it is starting to gain a bit of traction. We interviewed, and from our research, we've seen that 80% of people actually say that that is a priority for them. But it still has a way to go, in the sense that when people physically go and buy tickets, they go online, only 4% of people actually consider sustainability and carbon footprint as a priority. So there's still a way to go when it comes to sustainable travel. So if we were to highlight a bit more the Middle Eastern countries, I just want to focus on 4 countries, 4 cities within 4 countries, and how, just to see how they're each adapting. So Amman, for example, in Jordan, is having a bit of a slow recovery from COVID. We've seen that they've imposed one of the strictest lockdowns in 2020 and 2021. And we're not expecting their visitors to rebound until 2026. The levels are not going to rebound until 2026. When you compare it to other cities, the average is around 2022, 2023. So they are a bit late. And that's really because they've invested a lot of money during the pandemic or right before it into boosting their domestic travel. So the pandemic came it came at a rough time for them because they weren't able to rebound, and they're facing a lot of competition from their neighboring cities. For example, Cairo and Egypt specifically is investing a lot into cultural tourism, and that's something that we're going to cover later. So that's seen as direct competition to Jordan. Turkey is seen as a cheaper in terms of costs, for travel costs, when compared to Jordan. Again, it might sway a lot of people to travel to Turkey as opposed to Jordan. And Saudi Arabia is also enhancing its reputation as a hub really for tourism, which again directly impacts Amman's tourism figures. If you look at Doha, for example, Doha have really invested a lot of money into making themselves strong for domestic and international travel. So a very impressive statistic that we have for Doha is that the trend of a staycation, where people stay within their country, travel domestically, is very strong in Qatar. That in 2020, when international arrivals dropped by 73%, we saw hotel occupancies drop by just 10%. So that really shows how they're ready. They have the infrastructure ready, they have the attractions, and it's not just leisure attractions. They have a lot of business events. They're really building a lot of conference venues. They're building a lot of convention centers. And that's because in 2019, MICE tourism, which is meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibition centers, thank you, accounts for a third of business travel in 2019, and we're expecting that to continue growing. Like I said, we're seeing a lot of exhibition centers, the Doha Exhibition Center, for example, the Qatar National Convention Center, the Doha Convention Center. So a lot of these are being built, and if they're already built, they're being evolved in order to allow for more conferences, allow for more of the MICE tourism, which would really help the business travel to grow even more. And Doha is also positioning itself as a hub for sports events. Obviously, the clear one would be the World Cup that we're expecting.
Ismail, I'm sorry, I think you're stealing the best of Devika's lines here. So if you could just keep
sorry,
Doha if you could just keep Doha
I will jump straight
thank
through.
you.
We can jump into Cairo, which hopefully no one's covering. Cairo has really invested a lot in cultural tourism, so they're really finding their niche within cultural tourism. We're seeing growth, and we're expecting 7 million visitors in 2022. And like I said, Egypt is investing $1 billion US dollars in infrastructure and into building and renovating a lot of the cultural tourism venues and palaces. For example, we're seeing the museum, the Grand Egyptian Museum. We're seeing the Muhammad Ali Pasha Palace. We're seeing renovations in St. Catherine's Church. So there's a lot of investment into growing Egypt as a hub for cultural tourism. But Egypt has a bit of an issue right now because of the Russian conflict. Russia and Ukraine actually accounted for a third of tourists in terms of arrivals in Egypt. So it's been a bit of a bumpy ride with Russia. There's been a lot of travel bans. There's been a lot of, one day they're okay, one day they're not. But this conflict is really going to hurt the tourism sector in Egypt. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they bounce back and how they are able to attract tourists from different countries. And finally, we look at Dubai. Dubai really overcoming adversity is an understatement for what they were able to accomplish in 2021 and 2022. Obviously, with the Expo, it had to be delayed, and there was decades of advertising and planning that was invested into the project. And instead of shutting it down as COVID threatened to do, they postponed it. The city was able to still attract 24 million visitors, which is a very impressive number. It's very impressive to see how they overcame adversity and how they were able to still pull off one of the most successful events probably of the year. But again, they have a bit of an issue with lockdowns that were imposed in China. China has proved itself to be one of the highest value tourists for them in terms of money spent. So we're seeing an average of 20,000 dirhams spent per Chinese visitor. So now with the lockdowns that are being imposed in China because of COVID-19, it would be very interesting to see how the country will evolve. So that's my presentation. If you would like a copy of the presentation, feel free to go to euromonitor.com and search for the Arabian travel markets, and we'd be happy to answer all of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ismail. Thanks. So let's start our journey from the long haul market here. I'm looking at Tom Keeley from West Hollywood. Tom, could you tell us a bit more about WeHo and how do we get there, and are there any COVID protocols involved at the moment?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. West Hollywood is quite far from the Middle East, as we all know. We are on the western edge of Los Angeles and adjacent to Beverly Hills, so it's a very nice section of our city. Right now I'm happy to tell you that all of California actually is completely open. There are no more mask mandates. There are no more proof of vaccination mandates. You do still have to take a PCR one day before departing to the United States, which I'm doing tomorrow. It's very easy, but that is really the only thing you have to do to travel to the US. So very, very easy to get to. I'm happy to say that West Hollywood is a very exciting part of LA. We really compose I think when you think of Hollywood and a fun place, an exciting place to go, it's really West Hollywood that has that kind of appeal and that look. So we're very proud of that. But I will tell you that all of our hotels are fully open and operational. All of our shops, restaurants, nightlife is in full operation right now and doing extremely well. So business has really returned, especially in the last couple of months.
That's great to know. Could you throw some light on stats pre and post pandemic? Is that something you're at liberty to do? That would be very interesting to see how it's developing.
So for sure, results, stats are always really important to us, and we do research about every 2 years, and we were just getting ready to start another round of detailed research when COVID came along. But I can tell you the last time we did any extensive research for all of our visitation was in 2018. We're starting it up again, but we know that numbers from the Gulf, from the GCC, the visitor numbers are in the top 10, but the spending is the number one. Not surprisingly, we see that the spend that we get from visitors coming from this part of the world is exponentially larger than any other visitor we get. Number 2 is the UK, number 3 is Australia as far as visitation and spending goes. We do well from Canada and Western Europe as well. So we're looking forward to, hopefully in the next couple of months now that we're back on our feet financially, we're really looking forward to doing extensive research and understanding what the most updated numbers will be, but I fully expect that the GCC, especially the UAE, Qatar, Saudi, and Kuwait will really lead the way for us.
Great. So when we think West Hollywood, it's the Sunset Strip, right? Like that's what comes to mind is the Sunset Strip and all the entertainment. And it's also one of the most inclusive cities in the US, in the world, if I may say so. And what's the larger take on sustainability? Because inclusivity obviously is a part of it. So what's the larger take on sustainability for West Hollywood?
Sure. So we are home to the famous Sunset Strip. I don't know if you see this television show called Selling Sunset, which is popular in different parts of the world. I only watch it because it's about my city, so I really have to watch it. I feel obligated to, but I'm not sure if you've ever seen it. I'm not sure any of those women can sell a house, but they can sure sell West Hollywood very well. So, but it gives us a really good idea of the beauty of our city, right up against the Hollywood Hills and the exceptional kind of real estate that we have there. We are really a very forward-looking city. I'm very proud to say that our city council and our city government have been very much in the forefront of equality and fairness for everyone, looking also at the environment, really wanting to make sure that we lead the way by example of how to be good stewards of our environment. I think all of us in the travel industry are especially conscious of that now. The last thing we want to have happen is that people stop traveling because of any kind of negative impact on the environment. So we need to all be conscious of that. Our city has undertaken a smart city initiative, which really is engaging with our residents in an infrastructure way that allows for quicker, better, and more effective communication, where the city government is able to work with our residents and solve any problems that they might have in the most efficient manner. It also allows for a lot of good internal communication at what we call City Hall, or our city government. The city also has in place several programs to help residents cut down on carbon emissions, like if you want to buy new appliances for your home, they have programs that will find these appliances for you, help you finance them, deliver them, etc. So it's really great. We provide free transportation throughout the city for visitors and also for those that might have a difficult time getting around. My mother-in-law is somewhat partially disabled, and she takes full advantage of the free ride service that's available, completely financed by the city of West Hollywood. So we like to think that these programs that we've instituted are a good framework for perhaps other cities, not only in the greater Los Angeles area, but maybe anywhere in the world that might find value or that usefulness for that.
I just wanted to point out that in West Hollywood, there have been electric car charging stations like way back when, right? Like that's old news for you guys. You've been very ahead in the Smart City Tourism Initiative worldwide. Would that be right to say?
Yeah, I think it's probably not as good as it should be, but we have undertaken, with the help of the state of California, really, I think, a leading role in the United States about really cutting down on carbon emissions. Electric cars are extremely popular in California. The charging stations we're trying to catch up with the volume of people that are buying and using electric cars right now, so there's a little bit of work to do there. But I think even our federal U.S. government has really mandated quite a bit of money set aside for establishing a lot more car charging stations throughout the country. We need them, and it's really the way we're going to go forward with really cutting down on carbon emissions. So once again, we're very excited about helping set the course for that as well.
Great. and this is probably a rookie comment to make, but I have to because I wrote it. And I think the best part about WeHo is that you can stargaze during the day.
Yes, I think it truly is a city where there's lots of very famous people. So whenever we have friends come and visit, we'll go to, there's a few hot restaurants where you're guaranteed to see some famous people. One night we saw Jennifer Aniston at one table and Jake Gyllenhaal was at another table. So our friends were more than excited about that. But I guess I think when people come to LA, they kind of hope maybe to see famous people. Maybe they can see a place where a television show or a film was made, etc. There's some great film studio tours as well. So it's really a great city. We're a very welcoming city. We love having visitors from all over the world, especially from the Middle East, the GCC. So please come and visit us for sure.
Great, thank you, Tom. I'm going to
pleasure.
leave you alone now, finally. I was like, so many questions for you. So we next speak to Azerbaijan, the capital city of Baku. Behruz, tell us briefly about Baku. Share some pre-pandemic statistics, if you will, and compare them with what's happening now.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us today. And I'd also like to thank our esteemed panelists and Rashid. Thank you very much for the invitation. We've obviously we see 2022 as the path to the normalization, and we also see it in the number of arrivals that are that we are receiving in Azerbaijan. Compared, 2019 was, let's say, a remarkable year for us because for the very first time, Azerbaijan hit the record number of 3 million arrivals in the country. However, since the pandemic started, obviously the numbers decreased, and right now, compared to 2021, when we opened the thank you. And since August 2021, since we opened the borders with the Gulf region, we already started receiving a better number. 2022, if we can look at it, we see over 80% increase recovery in the numbers that we are getting. However, if we compare it to 2019, there is still a long way to go. Nevertheless, there are some countries from the Gulf region that are overperforming in comparison to the numbers of 2019. For example, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we see 20% increase in the number of the arrivals compared to 2019, as I said, which was our remarkable year. Still, GCC is among the priority markets for us, and right now the numbers are getting, let's say, better and better. I mean, looking at the first quarter of 2022.
We can't hear you. Sorry. So that's great to know that Baku is coming back in such a strong way from the pandemic. Can you tell us more? There are many interesting things happening around the city, some smart city initiatives and sustainable travel.
Well, absolutely. I would say Baku is attractive for the Gulf region if we are talking about from the perspective of the Gulf region. Firstly, obviously from the geographical perspective, because it's from all over the Gulf region, under 3 hours you can reach Baku. And there is a very good connectivity to the city and Azerbaijan. Almost from every country in the GCC, we have direct flights. And right now the flights are increasing their capacity and also their frequencies. Apart from that, the accessibility also comes with visa. We have a very simplified system for visas for both the nationals and the expats from the region. So you can get your visa either pre-arrival or upon arrival, and this process is very straightforward, and it takes less than 5 minutes to apply for the visa. You only need your passport for that. But apart from that, Baku obviously, Baku is a city we used to say it's an eastern city with an western outlook and lifestyle, so I guess this is also what makes Baku so interesting for a lot of travelers from the region, whether it is for cultural purposes, for leisure, for MICE and business, for corporate, so we have different segments coming in. We have taken some of initiatives, especially during the pandemic. We started off with Sahman program, which ensured the safety of the travelers to Azerbaijan. And as the tourism board and the state tourism agency, we were doing a lot of monitorings to make sure that the hotels and the F&B outlets are doing the right job to ensure the safety of the travelers. But apart from that, we've also taken a lot of initiatives to make Baku more attractive places. We've heavily invested in infrastructure. We've also made sure that, for example, not very far from Baku, only under an hour drive, we are now opening the first mud volcanoes tourism complex, where you will be, I'm sure everyone heard about the mud volcanoes, but there you will be able to experience it and also have a great time. But apart from that, we've been also investing in the city infrastructure. We've been building a lot of bicycle lanes for the tourists, which are right now is connecting different attraction points, and it's expected to also expansion it to the whole city.
Great, and there's some really interesting things like a miniature book museum. A miniature book museum which has 6,500 miniature books.
Exactly. In the inner city of Baku, which is like the core of the city of Baku, we have the Museum of Miniature Books. That it's for free, by the way, and it's amazing to see how many books there are, and you basically, it's very even hard to read them all. But I would like to also mention, as a new attraction in Baku, we have opened the first ever oil tanker museum in Baku, where because Baku is very famous for oil extraction historically, and this is where you can experience it, and also it's actually it's built at the same place where the first oil tankers in the world started operating.
Great, thank you. I have to ask you this question. Has the destination suffered in any way due to the geopolitical challenges around you?
Well, due to its proximity and sharing borders with Russia and very close relations also with Russia and Ukraine, obviously there is an impact in terms of the number of the tourists we are getting from Russia and Ukraine, because they were among our top source markets. However, nevertheless, I can assure you that there is no concern for the safety of the travelers coming to Azerbaijan, because unfortunately this recent escalation is happening far away from the actual borders. However, it really saddens us to see what's happening in the region, and we hope for the best, and then that the conflict can be resolved very soon. I understand that this escalation also creates a lot of challenges for other destinations, which we, as an example, Egypt and other places. And but even for the destinations like Azerbaijan, even though we still keep receiving the numbers and the tourists, we see the increase, for example, in the prices of the flight fares, which obviously affects the whole region. However, as I said, we still keep receiving the numbers from Russia.
Thank you, Fairuz. Now we move on to Doha. Devika, Doha is returning from the pandemic to a year which is full of exciting sporting events and really luxury high-end hotel openings. So if you could just give us a gist of what's happening.
So before I
just tell us what
start,
Ismail hasn't already told us.
So before I start that, I want to just give you a brief overview. Having lived in 10 countries and 50 cities, I'm proud. Yeah, I'm proud to call Qatar my home. I mean, to be very honest, I don't know how many of you all have been to Qatar, but many people feel that the destination has a lot of misperceptions. People think that it's unsafe, there's nothing much to do, it's just a bit of a desert experience. But in reality, it's far from the truth. It's the safest destination in the world, and it's where cultural authenticity meets modernity, and where the sand meets the sea. So during pandemic, I would say the pre-pandemic figures, we did welcome over 2 million visitors into the country. And yes, the pandemic was challenging, but I see it as an opportunity from a tourism perspective, because if you just see right behind you, we launched one of the first global TVC, which was to experience the world beyond, to give unforgettable, memorable experiences to the world who did not know what to expect when they visit Qatar. So when you mention about city tourism, for us, it's definitely one of our key priorities during and post-pandemic, because through the infrastructure and through the developments, we really want to welcome the world to experience a world like no other. So of course, we're launching we're looking forward to the smallest event in the world, just the FIFA World Cup, where we plan to attract more than 1 million visitors. But for us, as a tourism board, we're not looking at FIFA. We're looking this event as a way to welcome people to experience a destination that they've never done before. So currently what we are doing, the teams are working tirelessly where almost 100 new hotels are going to be launching.
This year.
This year. This year. So and they're going to be a total one-of-a-kind hotels. The first flagship, Waldorf Astoria, will be launching at the Lucelle, where the opening and the closing matches are going to be happening. We'll be launching the U-shaped Qatar Towers, the first Fairmont and the first Raffles in Qatar. And it's going to be a 6-star hotel. So it's really going to put hospitality to another level. We are launching also the new Rixos, Rosewood, and again, it's not just talking about the 5-star hotels. We're also catering to the mid-market, to 3-star and 4-star. Because from the research, what we've seen, many people feel that Qatar is just for the high-end and the luxurious market. But that's again a perception and a misconception. Because in reality, we've got the new railway system that has just been launched in 2019. Uber and Careem are more affordable than in Europe or in America. We've got the souk waqif, the marketplaces, where for less than $20, you can have a good meal for 2. So we just want people to understand that you don't need to have deep pockets to come and experience a destination which is filled of beauty, culture, and authenticity.
Wow. So 100 hotels in a year. I'm going to ask you about sustainability next. So what's the city doing to remain sustainable?
See, for sustainability, right now we are working towards the Qatar 2030 vision. So one of our key vision right now is to be one of the most sustainable destinations in the Middle East, if not in the region, if not in the globe. So I don't know if you've heard about it, but we had launched the Musharraf Properties, which is the world's first largest sustainable city, where you've got the LEED Platinum and Gold certified, which allocates and shows the water and energy efficiencies. During the FIFA World Cup, we'll be having electrical buses. We'll be encouraging visitors to use the train in order to reduce the carbon footprint. The 974 Stadium, which is the first stadium, is going to be completely dismantled in order to give it back to the African countries. And more, we are working with the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy to see how we can be a more sustainable FIFA experience to the visitors. So they're going to be, of course, recyclable. There's going to be no plastic bottles. We're going to be having reusable bottles. We're working very closely with the leading hospitality brands like Anantara, like Wyndham, like Marriott, in order to ensure there's biodegradable amenities, plastic-free bottles. So that's one of our key visions that we're working towards.
That's great to see. Thank you, Devika, for your time. Emily, who's the head of Donata Travel's leisure vertical, and who better to talk to about all the cities in the Middle East, really, inbound, and outbound. So which cities are coming back this year, Emily? And sorry for the wait.
That's right, you save the best for last, don't you, Richie? Sure, so I think over the last couple of years in the wake of the pandemic, we had been seeing more of our customers looking for island escapes, beach breaks, countryside retreats. But what we've really seen over the last couple of months, particularly over the long Eid break that we've just had, is with a lot of countries dropping their COVID regulations and health and safety improvements. A lot of people have been looking to go back to cities. So in terms of our top cities for travellers over the last 90 days, Dubai is still number 1 with staycations for us. Istanbul, London, Bangkok, Paris, Cairo are up there, and then you're also looking at Muscat, Rome, Amsterdam, and Barcelona.
End of the year, do you have any projections of new cities adding to this mix?
Yeah, so I think we're really starting to see a lot of the Asian cities as those countries are opening up. So Bangkok, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, and definitely Seoul in Korea is quite popular. I do also think that we'll see more and more of the US cities coming up, so New York, and we've actually seen quite a lot of search around Las Vegas as well. And then I think with Europe, definitely over the summer break period, we'll see more, Athens, some of the Spanish cities, Italy, Budapest coming up.
Would you know why people are traveling? Like, is it just leisure? Is it meeting friends and family? Do you know the reasons why people are traveling? Do you see that in the bookings or?
Yeah, so visiting friends and family is definitely a top priority, but we tend to see, especially from this region, India, the Philippines, the UK being the top of that list. Big sporting events is a reason. So I know we're working quite closely with Azerbaijan tourism around the Formula One, which is coming up in June. I don't know how many of you have started watching Drive to Survive on Netflix, but I think that's really helped Formula One's, to really help make that more popular. So that's coming up in June. Obviously FIFA in Qatar towards the end of the year, and even looking forward to next year, the Rugby World Cup is on across France, so Paris, Nice, etc. I think also, obviously we saw the success of Expo in Dubai, so big events like that. Another reason we're seeing city tourism rise is cruise departures. So cruise has come back really strongly in the last 6 months, and I know that this summer cruise season from Europe is looking really good. So that's cities like Barcelona, Venice, Amsterdam, where the cruises are leaving from. And then I think a few of the other trends we've been seeing is gastronomy. I personally love to travel for food, so I'm sure there's lots of other people that do too, and cultural experiences.
Sure. Wow, thank you. Do you see any trends on how the cities are evolving, or would that not be something that you'd be party to? Like, can you?
I mean, yeah, it's not something we necessarily get involved in, but I think from some of the conversations we've had this week with our tourism board partners, I know, there's been a lot of conversation about events, so sporting events, as we were talking about before. I think things like a lot of the lifestyle hotel offerings, so I think Dubai's done a really good job of that. I'm not sure if during the event this week anyone's been across to the 25 Hours Hotel, but they've done a really great job at having a lot of open workspaces for people. Dubai's done a good job over the last year with all the different visas for freelancers, etc. So I do think that kind of thing is helping. I know we were talking about that before with the whole business leisure, offering. And then I think one of the things which actually I was having a conversation with our DSVP about the other day with city tourism is that now's an amazing time to go, because a lot of these cities have, the crowds are smaller. You get the opportunity to be able to go and see some of these city sites. They're a lot more accessible, right? And I do know that some city tourism boards, like in Venice, for example, are looking to start charging a €5 fee for one-day tourists, just to try and help manage some of those crowds and I guess take learnings from it pre and post-pandemic.
Thank you, Emily, for those wonderful insights. I'm just going to go for a rapid fire round now. I think we don't have much time, do we? Okay, no, it's almost over. Wait, where are my questions? So I know airlines are rapidly returning to the cities. We're all projecting 100% capacity by the end of this year, 2019, but staycations still seem to be important. Does anyone want to take this question?
Yeah, I can. Okay.
No, I just wanted to add, staycations are very, very popular, and it was a bit surprising, especially for a destination like Doha. As Ismail said, when the hotel occupancies were dropping everywhere from international, we were still number one in the top 5 in the Middle East, because many people wanted to get out of the 4 walls. So whether you would see Qataris, the local residents, going and staying at the Hilton Salva, because it's got the desert and the waterfall adventure park, or they're going to Zalal Wellness, the wellness retreat, because you just wanted to get out to have a good time with the family. So I would say staycation still date is very, very popular.
That's great to know. I think I see everyone nodding and Tom pulling the microphone towards himself.
I think that, because Los Angeles is a very large city, and we found during COVID that it was a market that we had never tapped into before, and we had to because our business being in the middle of a city completely evaporated overnight. So staycations were important to us, and they still are. And I think it's extremely gratifying for us to see airline service returning so strongly, not only within the United States, but also from other parts of the world. We're thrilled that Emirates is back in full force, and Qatar as well. Saudi starts their service very shortly. We hope that Etihad will return to Los Angeles, and then we'd have all the Gulf carriers back from this part of the world to LA would be great.
Wow, that's great. Ismail, I'm not looking at you, but you apply as well. So if you have a question, just raise your hand or whistle or something. I mean, if you have an answer. I have the questions here. So our city is focusing on accessible travel. And is there a gap here? Should cities be pushing their accessibility more? Does anyone want to take this?
I definitely feel there is a gap in the market, and it's a segment that we haven't yet tapped into, but especially working towards the big event. I know that the tourism board is working with the entities to really focus more on the accessibility part as well.
Sure. Emily spoke about gourmet and people traveling for food. Our city is evolving into retail and F&B hubs. We saw that Dubai was recently, with the Michelin thing. So our city is evolving as people want to go out more.
I mean, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, obviously, one of the main things that travelers and tourists are looking for is the food, both the local and international cuisine that they can get during their visit. And we see that cities are always trying to increase the variety of different restaurants, what they're offering, and there are destinations that are purely traveling for food, and it definitely affects it definitely contributes to the tourists coming to the experience of the tourists coming to the destination. And also in Baku, we currently see a lot of new restaurants being brought to the region. There are new chefs that are emerging, and as the tourism board, we've been also investing into a beautiful project called Slow Food Travel, and where we managed to get our different farms and different restaurants across the city and also across the road to join this initiative and offer such a beautiful experience to the tourists.
I can vouch for this because I had jam from a city called Sheki, which is like UNESCO listed, an ancient place. Sorry, we don't have time for me blabbering. We're already 3 o'clock. Do you mind if we do another 10 minutes? Is that okay with everyone? Thank you so much. I just hear a few nods. I'm not going to listen to the people who are complaining. Are the large incentive groups coming back? I mean, that is the question of the day, isn't it?
Yes.
Are they coming back already? Do you think they'll be back at the end of the year at some point?
We personally, from the destination, from Qatar, we're already hosting another group in October, which is about 400 to 500 delegates. And because we've got the infrastructure with the QNCC and the DECC exhibition centers, we are actually receiving a lot of requests from Europe and from India. So there's definitely a lot of pent-up demand. People are planning to get out of the countries to have more MICE incentive travels. So we've seen an increase.
It's good to see that that's coming back as well. Is medical travel something that any of our panelists are seeing into their cities, or if do you see a rise already because people have been in their cities and there are some treatments which are more affordable outside or very specialized treatments not available in your city? So do you have any data, any indications of how that is going to evolve?
We have a very large hospital in West Hollywood called Cedars-Sinai, which is a very, I think, very good center and specializes a lot in medical tourism. They don't provide statistics to us, but they do tell us that medical tourism has always been important to them and is definitely picking up for them, for sure. We work with them to a certain extent to help promote that, but more than theirs is based on specialty, not necessarily on price. I know certain locations have very good prices for certain types of medical tourism, but Cedars Sinai is really about any kind of special treatment you need, but there is certainly a market for it globally, and we try to help them maximize that, but it is a very important part of their segment and ours as well.
Great, that's good to know. Ismail.
I can add as well, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
We're also seeing, for medical tourism, we're seeing that in Turkey, we're seeing a big increase in terms of visitors to those regions. And this kind of is pretty similar, but health and wellness, we're also seeing an increase for countries that kind of surround the Dead Sea. We're seeing an increase in visitors and spend there, so that kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Thank you, Ismail. Ismail, that presentation was superb, and I have some travelers estimated to double this year compared to 2021. Wow, yay. The industry is expected to keep growing at a compound annual growth rate of 13.6. Sorry, I'm just repeating, but these facts are worth repeating. But in terms of sustainability, people are not putting their money where their mouth is. They say that they want sustainability, but they're choosing cost at the end of the day. So nothing changes till that changes, isn't it? But my final remark, I think I'm just going to shut up after this, but why should we be paying the price of sustainability? Why should consumers only be paying the price of sustainability? Maybe that should be the session for next year.
Yeah, I think that's a different discussion altogether.
So any closing remarks, please?
No, I just think based off the numbers you were just saying, with tourism growing, and I think you can see from the turnout at the show this week that I think everyone's really excited for travel to be back. Over Eid, we saw, that we were up about 195% in bookings for the same Eid period last year. And what was great about that is we were seeing that about 65% of it was for international travel. So I think when you start to, see numbers like that and get that sentiment, I think, we're in for an exciting year ahead.
On that note, here's to a wonderful summer and a great 2022. Thank you so much for being here at ATM.